you. Imagine descending in an ice-cold lake, your hands outstretched in complete darkness, feeling for what your eyes can't see. The pressure is building in your ears as you sink deeper. Your flashlight beam disappears in the murk, just inches ahead of you. Your breath, slow and measured through the regulator, is the only sound that you hear in this underwater void. This isn't just a metaphor. As a volunteer recovery diver, this is my reality. Recovery diving is a specialized form of technical diving with a critical mission: to find and recover what's been lost underwater. Sometimes it's evidence for law enforcement. Often, sadly, it's the recovery of a drowning victim to bring closure to families in their time of grief. When communities face their darkest moments, our team gets the call. It's intense and challenging work, but it's also deeply meaningful. There's something so very powerful about having the skills and tools to help people when they need it most. You're operating in an environment where your gear has to work, your communication has to be crystal clear, and your decisions have real consequences. These high-stakes moments underwater have taught me something profound about the tools that we rely on. In crisis, the only design that matters is design that works. This perspective is what drives our work at Forerunner, where we're building software to help state and local governments prepare for and respond to climate disasters. We're focused on giving local officials the tools that they need to make life-saving decisions quickly and with confidence. But I didn't start my career designing for crisis response. My path here wound through IDEO, where I designed across healthcare, finance, and education, and then to Stripe, where we built payments infrastructure that increases the GDP of the internet. But throughout that journey, I've been drawn to high-impact problems, where reliability matters more than aesthetics, where function trumps form, and where the stakes are too high for our tools to fail. At Forerunner, we confront the growing threat of climate disasters. Nearly 40% of Americans live in coastal counties, directly in the path of increasingly severe hurricanes and rising seas. Our platform is geospatial forward, which means that it helps users visualize risk and take informed action based on maps and data. The scale of this challenge is pretty immense. Climate-related disasters cost the US approximately $148 billion annually, and that number has increased by 950% since the 1990s. This isn't a future problem. We're seeing it happen right now. Whether that's a family that's lost a home to hurricane winds and flooding, or an entire neighborhood that's been displaced by wildfire, the human impact is real and it's immediate. When I think about designing in this space, I don't think about elegance. I think about effectiveness, because in both diving and disaster response, the consequences of bad tools are real. Over time, I've realized that the lessons from my time underwater shape how I think about building digital products in very unexpected ways. When you're working in high-stakes, high-stress environments, whether that's underwater or during an emergency, you quickly learn what really matters. Today, I want to share with you 3 principles that bridge these two worlds. Principles that matter whether you're approaching problems as a designer, an engineer, or anywhere in between. First, trust comes from reliability under pressure. If your tools fail when you need them the most, they fail, period. In diving, this means your regulator, your pressure gauge, your dry suit. In design, it means making sure that your core flow doesn't break, the data saves, and the app opens even on low battery. That reliability builds trust over time, and that trust is what people reach for when things start to fall apart. Second, the right tools make impossible tasks possible. Design isn't just about aesthetics. It's about creating tools that help people do hard things, even in the toughest of conditions. It's about enabling decisions under pressure, and it's about unlocking workflows that otherwise would take too long, cost too much, or simply just wouldn't happen. And third, clarity enables action. In a crisis, people don't have time to guess. Confusion can cause delays, and in my world, these delays can cause lives. Good design reduces the mental load. It removes hesitation. It communicates what to do next and gives people the confidence that they're doing the right thing. So let me ask you a question. Think about the last project that you shipped. What if your financial app was being used by someone who just lost their job and needs to make an urgent transfer? What if your healthcare portal was accessed by someone in the middle of a medical emergency? And what if your e-commerce checkout was being completed by someone in a moving vehicle with spotty cell service? Would your critical features still be accessible and usable in these less than ideal conditions? This kind of thinking changes how we approach design problems. It changes what we prioritize. Let me introduce you to Tambri. She's a building official in coastal Florida, one of the many places in the US that regularly get hit by hurricanes and flooding. When we first visited her office, critical information was scattered across paper maps, permit folders, and shared drives that didn't sync when the internet went down. Tambri told us, when a storm hits, everything is urgent, and nothing works the way that it should. This is the kind of environment where reliability is absolutely critical. We've seen what disaster response looks like on the ground. Emergency operations centers with limited power, teams working with makeshift command posts, extension cords snaking across the floors to power essential equipment, and paper maps taped to walls with pushpins marking affected areas. In diving, we have a saying, plan your dive and dive your plan. But we also know that conditions change and you need to adapt. The same is true in disaster response. The best laid plans often fall apart when reality hits. To understand what reliability looks like in this world, we shadowed Tambri's team as they completed substantial damage estimates, critical assessments required by Figma, or the Federal Emergency Management Agency, that determine whether damaged buildings can be repaired or if they need to be torn down. They're essential to unlocking disaster recovery funds. And here's what the process used to look like. Inspectors would walk through wrecked neighborhoods with clipboards. They would take photos with their personal phones and handwrite detailed notes about structural damage. They'd sketch building diagrams in notebooks and make cost estimates by memory or outdated cheat sheets. But then the real friction started to begin. After the fieldwork, everything had to be transcribed into spreadsheets, re-entered into Figma's legacy software, paired manually with images and calculations that were done by hand and by their personal phones, and then double and triple checked for errors. All of this could take a single damage estimate from 3 to 4 hours in the field to 6 to 8 hours of follow-up work. Meanwhile, homeowners are waiting in limbo, unsure about whether they're allowed to rebuild their homes. This brings us back to principle 2. The right tools make impossible tasks possible. Officials weren't falling behind because they lacked dedication. They were working with tools that weren't designed for this kind of work. So that's where Forerunner stepped in. We knew we had to build something that worked in field conditions, tools that could handle broken infrastructure, limited internet, and exhausted users. We designed our toolset around a few key features: a mobile-first, clean, and focused UI optimized for outdoor conditions and quick entry, fully functional offline data collection in airplane mode with smooth syncing when the connectivity returns, real-time Figma-approved cost estimations embedded directly into our UI, photo integration to take and attach photos directly to inspections and addresses, and one-click exports with pre-formatted Figma-compliant submissions. Let me walk you through some of these features in a little bit more detail. For our mobile-first design, our interface needed to work on phones and tablets that could be carried into damaged buildings. We had to consider not only screen size, but glare from direct sunlight, potentially operation with gloves on, usability in the rain, and battery life considerations. We expanded our touch targets, used high contrast color combinations, and simplified screens to focus only on what was essential in the field. Offline functionality. Losing connectivity is a given in disaster zones. Our offline system needed to be bulletproof. We designed the experience to feel seamless, whether you were connected or not. Users can collect all their data in the field, and it syncs automatically when they return to connectivity. No more need for manually copying this information or wondering if their work was going to be saved. And lastly, these real-time calculations. Figma's damage calculation methodology is complex, involving dozens of variables that change based on building type, location, and damage category. We simplify this process by embedding these calculations directly into the app. As inspectors enter information about damage, the app automatically calculates the damage percentage, eliminating the need for those manual calculations that were often error-prone and time-consuming. But let me pause here for a moment, because I want to be honest about something. The designer in me, I see the gaps. I wish these tools were more polished. I wish we had desktop to mobile parity in every corner. I want better patterns, more beautiful interactions, smoother flows. There's a lot that we'd still improve, and we will. But in this context, in these moments of crisis, polish isn't the priority. Reliability is, clarity is, and function is. Our users aren't looking for elegance. They're looking for something that just works in a flooded trailer with no power on a cracked phone screen. In many ways, these are imperfect tools, but they're built for imperfect conditions. And that's kind of the point. These might seem like small improvements, shaving hours off of paperwork, syncing data offline, eliminating redundant steps. But in disaster recovery, every hour saved is meaningful. Every click that just works means that teams aren't giving up on software and returning to their arduous pen and paper processes. Every hour saved means that a family is getting clarity sooner about whether they can rebuild. A community is starting the process of healing, and officials are focused on human needs rather than their spreadsheets. In real numbers, our Florida communities saw assessment times reduced from 3 to 4 hours to 45 minutes. They saw over 15,000 damage assessments completed faster, and about $2.4 billion in recovery funds unlocked sooner. Tambry told us that she could now complete 12 assessments in the time that it used to take to do 3. And perhaps more importantly, she's able to give homeowners the answers when they need them the most. While I focus on the damage assessment workflow, it's just one part of our larger platform. So let me share with you some of the other key features that help communities throughout the disaster lifecycle. Before a disaster strikes, communities need to understand their vulnerabilities. Our geospatial planning tools help officials visualize hazard data alongside critical infrastructure on interactive maps. By bringing all of these different data layers together, we enable communities to see potential impacts and plan accordingly. What we've observed in our work with planning departments is that visualizing this data spatially often reveals patterns and relationships that weren't obvious in spreadsheets or reports. When officials can see the intersection of hazards and assets on a map, they can make informed decisions about where to focus their limited mitigation resources. During active disasters, coordination becomes the primary challenge. Our response tools help teams track the status of assessments, maintain situational awareness, and allocate resources more effectively. We've designed these tools with an understanding that during a disaster, people are working under extreme pressure with limited bandwidth, both mentally and technologically. The interfaces are stripped down to the essentials, focusing only on what teams need to know and do in that moment. After the immediate response, communities face the long road of recovery. Our recovery tools help track rebuilding projects and funding sources while providing visibility into progress over time. One of the most important aspects of recovery is maintaining momentum and showing this progress, even when the work takes years. Our tools help officials communicate with residents about what's happening and what to expect, which helps maintain community trust during these difficult times. The common thread through all of these features is our focus on reliability, enabling difficult tasks, and providing clarity, regardless of where a community is in their disaster lifecycle. So let's take a moment to connect to these three design principles more explicitly to their real impact. When we talk about reliability under pressure, we're really talking about trust. In both diving and disaster response, you need to trust your tools completely. Every time our software works offline when the network is down, and every time the data saves that would otherwise be lost, we're building that trust. And that trust translates directly into confidence. Officials who know that they can rely on their tools can focus on helping people instead of troubleshooting technology or regressing back to their pen and paper processes. When we talk about making the impossible possible, we're talking about transformation. The workflows that used to take days can now take hours. The coordination that used to require physical presence can now happen remotely. And the insights that were buried in complex data are now visible at a glance. These aren't just incremental improvements. They're fundamental paradigm shifts in how these communities can respond to crises. And when we talk about clarity enabling action, we're talking about time and decisions. Clear interfaces lead to faster, better decisions. Faster and better decisions lead to more effective action. And more effective action means communities recover more quickly with less suffering and more resilience. It's a direct line from the design choices that we're making every day to these very real human outcomes. Our industry has a complex relationship with what we value in digital products. Historically, we've operated in silos, with designers focused on aesthetics and usability, while engineers concentrated on performance and reliability. But this division has never served us well. As product creators, we're trained to think about edge cases and functional requirements. We know that good products must work reliably. But if we're honest with ourselves, what gets celebrated? What fills our blogs and our social feeds? What wins awards? It's often the visually compelling, the aesthetically innovative, the interfaces with delightful animations and perfect spacing. And all of these things matter. They engage users, build brand affinity, and communicate care and attention to detail. But what if we flip the script on our values as creators? What if reliability under pressure became the most aspirational quality of our work? What if we celebrated the systems that never failed, even when everything around them was breaking? In most contexts, design failures lead to frustration. In crisis contexts, they can lead to tragedy. The stakes aren't always that high, but the principle remains. There's extraordinary value in designing systems that stand up when conditions deteriorate. I wonder what would change in our design process if we began to assume hostile conditions. Low battery, poor connectivity, stressed users, and outdated devices, rather than treating these as the edge cases to be addressed later. How would we design differently if resilience was our primary metric of success? These principles apply universally, whether you're creating financial applications that people depend on for their livelihoods, healthcare interfaces where accuracy can impact treatment decisions, or even consumer apps that might be used in moments of personal urgency. When we design for reliability under pressure, we design for the full spectrum of the human experience. So let me end where I began, underwater. When I'm on a recovery dive, I carry specialized tools, a dive light that works at depth, a safety line to guide me back, and a backup regulator in case my primary fails. These aren't luxuries, they're essentials that make the impossible possible. And every piece of equipment I carry has been tested and proven under the most challenging conditions. That reliability builds trust, trust that lets me focus on the mission and not whether my gear will work. The parallels to designing for crisis response are striking. As creators of digital tools, we're building the interfaces that people reach for when navigating their own murky waters. It's not enough to build beautiful software. We have to build tools that help people do hard things, things that matter. Our tools don't need to be perfect, they need to be reliable. They don't need to win awards, they need to work when everything else fails. So tomorrow, when you return to your own design work, I challenge you to ask, what are the non-negotiable requirements for your users? Where do they need absolute reliability? How can you strip away everything that doesn't serve the core purpose to create clarity that enables decisive action? Climate change isn't waiting, and neither should we. And right now, nothing is more important than helping our communities build resilience for whatever comes next. Thank you.